Please join me in welcoming award-winning actor, producer, and preeminent badass, Jessica Chastain, to the stage. Thank you so much for joining us. We know that you're taking time out of your busy schedule shooting Aaron Sorkin's Molly's Game in Toronto.
I'm very happy to be here. I was at Beaver Valley, yeah? So this morning, on the top of a mountain covered in fake blood and snow, so I'm very happy to be here.
So let's just jump right in and talk about something you're known for, which is your preparation for all your roles. And you often talk about how you've always had work ethic, but that it was Juilliard that really focused you and gave you the toolbox to prepare. So for the audience, what does it mean for you to prepare for a role, and maybe talk us through a character and how you did that, how you went through the stages?
Yeah, I always start with the script of the film. The great thing about going to school, and I think everyone that wants to be an actor or work in film or in the arts should study something. They should go to school because you learn so much that you don't expect to learn. And at Juilliard, it's like they gave me a toolbox. So each teacher had their own technique, you know, animal substitution. You're pretending you're an animal, you're doing this, you're doing that. And you don't know when you're going to need it until it pops into your head when you're reading a script. So, you know, for example, The Martian, that was very technical, and I didn't have a lot of knowledge on NASA or what it would take to be a commander of a mission to Mars, so I asked Ridley Scott to send me to space camp, and we made our own space camp. I went to JPL and met with everyone there working on the rovers on Mars. I got to do a virtual reality of what it would be like to be on Mars, some of the training that they have their astronauts do. I went to NASA in Houston and met with Tracy Caldwell Dyson, and actually it was a happy accident. In my research, I met a woman who then I based my character on. And I got a lot of information of what a person would do in that situation from her. I always make sure if my character knows what they're saying, then I have to know what that means. I can't fake it.
So one of the topics that you've been very open about is that the tendency for actors to get typecast, to get pigeonholed, and especially for women, that it's really easy for people to get stuck playing a certain character or role over and over again. That hasn't happened in your career. And I'm thinking about all the actors in the audience. How did you avoid being typecast?
I was really lucky. I don't think I realized it at the time when I was a struggling actor because, of course, we're all impatient and we want the job now. And I had a lot of time to observe the industry and observe society. And one thing I noticed is a lot of the time we define women by how they look. It's the physical attribute, and that's who that person is. And I saw that in movies, actors got to change the way they looked a lot. But women, it was very rare that an actress was able to change her physical appearance. So I was, in 2011, those films that I had coming out, I was playing so many different kinds of characters because I was always auditioning for different characters that I think they realized, they tried to typecast me because when Tree of Life and Take Shelter came out, all of a sudden all the scripts I got were the most angelic, beautiful, loving human beings, which I love those characters, but I didn't want to be that sweetie pie in every film. So then I did Zero Dark 30 and Crimson Peak and all these very dark, Miss Julie, all these dark characters. Now I'm going back to being a nice person. So I just, no matter what, I kind of notice when I'm getting a script what the temperature is, where people are trying to send me, and I'll tend to go the opposite way.
Do you feel like you have flexibility with the script to kind of veer them, to make them, because you always seem to portray really complex, multi-layered characters. Are you adding that? Is that something that...
I'm so happy because my hair and makeup team's here today. Linda Dowds and Stephanie Ingram. I don't know where they are. They're right there. And hair and makeup gets so underestimated in movies. I never start from the outside in. I always find in the script or in the interior of the character why she's projecting something. In A Most Violent Year, it was really important that Anna Morales project to the neighbors that she had the most money, that she had the most power. And all of that came into the way her power was by how she looked. And Crimson Peak, being confined, Lucille, all of that is when she's faking it, she's confined in her clothes, when she's pretending there's nothing wrong. And then all of a sudden when her hair's down and she's in this nightgown, she's batshit crazy. So to me, the look of the character goes hand in hand with the interior life of the character, and sometimes they conflict. Sometimes someone's trying to cover up their inner life by projecting something on the out. And the biggest example of this, I think, would be Marilyn Monroe, where she had so much turmoil, and yet she was projecting this childlike, innocent whiteness. And there was two different things going on in there, and that is really interesting to me.
So you even talked about with hair and makeup and the whole crew and the collaboration. We often hear about an actor's director. What for you are characteristics that make for a compelling director that you want to work with? Because, you can choose. How do you decide who you want to work with? What qualities are you looking for?
Well, life is short, and I don't want to be on set with someone who's a jerk.
It's a true story.
True story. It's not worth it, no matter what. There are enough good filmmakers out there. You don't have to be a jerk. I don't like people who scream. Even if you're nice to me, but you're rude to the crew, I don't like it. I want to, we're really lucky to get to do this job. It's an incredible thing that we get to do with our lives. And so don't be a jerk. That is my number one. And then it's important that someone has their own point of view. You talked about Xavier Dolan. You watch one of his films, it's one of his films. He has a strong point of view. He is an incredible human being. And I loved being on set with him because I also felt like he was pushing me in unexpected places. That's what I'm interested in with a director also. Someone who's willing to take a jump and a risk in the physical transformation, but also the emotional transformation of what I get to do.
So you have worked with a staggering number of just legendary, amazing filmmakers, but they're all very distinct and different in their style and approaches. So I was thinking we could rapid fire through some of the names and in a word or phrase. Okay, here we go. Terrence Malick.
In a phrase?
You can have a word or phrase.
In a word or phrase.
Or dance or whatever.
Maybe I'll just fly among the trees. Terrence Malick is one of the best human beings I've ever met.
Okay, Kathryn Bigelow.
Kathryn Bigelow, badass.
I thought you were going to say that. She's pretty badass.
Badass.
Guillermo del Toro. Our audience is very familiar with Guillermo del Toro, Professor del Toro to us.
I would say teddy bear.
Nice. Al Pacino.
He's my acting godfather.
Nice. Xavier Dolan.
He's my spirit animal.
Aaron Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin. He's a genius. It's just his mind works in this is going to be longer than a word because I think he's the best writer we have, and his mind works in a way that isn't human. So I'd probably say he's probably not human. He's an alien.
Nikki Caro, the filmmaker of Zookeeper's wife.
She's the great Earth Mother.
I love this. So we are setting up for The Zookeeper's Wife, and I was wondering, as the executive producer and star of the film, if you would do us the honor and set it up for our audience before we watch it.
Yeah, I'm excited to for you guys to see this film. When we were doing, actually right towards the end of the film, I worked with someone to create this piece about what it was like being on the set, because there were a lot of women on the set of this film, more than I've worked with before, in front and behind the camera. We had a female protagonist, true story of this woman, Antonina Zabinska. We had female novelist, female scriptwriter, female director, female producers, female stunt coordinator, never heard of that before. First, that was amazing. Production designer, head of costume designer, hair and makeup. It just kind of went on and on and on. And it still wasn't 50-50 on the set, but there was a sense of balance. It was probably 25% women on our crew and on cast and crew of this film. And it was a very collaborative, beautiful experience. And I'm excited for you guys to see the film. We'll see if you can see the feminine touch.
Great. So we'll watch the film, and then we'll come back up to talk about it and upcoming projects. So, The Zookeeper's Wife. So it's the first time you're seeing it. It's the first time Jessica's seeing it. So you're seeing it in the audience with her. Where do we even start with the preparation? How do you even start preparing for this role?
Well, for this part, there was a great novel, and the Zookeeper's Wife, the novel, is basically brought together from Antonina's journals that were recently discovered after her death, and she and Jan were made righteous among the nation, and then the novel. So I started with the book, and then I went to Warsaw. I went to the zoo. I met with Teresa, Antonina's daughter, and she's in the movie. She is at the party scene. She's the beautiful blonde woman sitting on the sofa that I dropped the cookies right in front of. And so I met with her, and you get so much from, when you're playing a real person, from talking to the family, because she told me in her whole life she never saw her mom wear pants, which was so strange to me, but that's not something that was in the book. She also said things like the necklace that Antonina wore. She talked about the relationship between her and Jan, and that Jan called Antonina Punya because that means cat. So I tried to think of a cat, and I tried to. There was something about Antonina where no matter what was going on, she was always trying to be the beauty, the love, the compassion, the softness in the world of aggression. And so I used all of that. And then I went to Auschwitz, which was devastating. And there was it was like a lot of research that just kept coming up.
And what about the dialect, the accent?
Yeah, Antonina, she was born in St. Petersburg, and she was raised in Russia. And it wasn't until she was an adult that she moved to Poland. She, though, was Polish because she had Polish parents. But it's not in the film. Her true story is her mother died when she was younger, and her father remarried and was walking home from dinner one day, and the soldiers said, "Let me see your hands." And they showed their hands, and then they were shot because they didn't have calluses on their hands. So they were the intelligentsia. That was the way to find out if someone was a laborer or a thinker. And so then Antonina, that happened when she was very young, and she became, I guess you would say, a refugee of sorts. And I think that's what brings her that connection with that little girl. She sees a lot of herself in the girl.
You mentioned beforehand that you're often drawn to characters that have not necessarily contradictions, but have kind of opposing forces or tensions going on in different layers. What would be the layers, and talk about, the depth of this character?
Well, it depends from scene to scene, because I think in a situation like that, especially in a lot of scenes, when someone starts to enjoy themselves, then there's the guilt of what it is to smile when other people are suffering. So there's that, the opposites in that scenario. I mean, she is a woman that we made to be really comfortable around animals and not so comfortable around people. And throughout the story, she becomes, when people start to become like animals, she starts to become part of the group and feel a trust in a community that she hadn't had before. And so there's always many things going on at once. And also, you had asked me about the accent. So I work with Joan Washington, who's an incredible dialect coach, and I worked with her many times. And we tried to give Antonina an accent, but still make her a Polish accent, because she'd be fluent in the language, but she was still an outsider. We wanted to keep that, so we didn't want to make it so natural for her to speak.
A lot of the research that you do about a character, you try to find one common thread or one way in to get some depth and to get to figure out how you start from it. So what was your common thread with her?
For me, it was animals. So I love animals so much. So that was actually the way I found the script. Is I had gone into my agent's office when they were asking me what kind of things I wanted to work on, and I just said, I love animals. If there's a gorillas in the mist, send it my way. So that for sure, it was in addition to all of the research on Antonina and the war and the accent and all of the history of what had happened, I got to meet incredible people who spend their lives taking care of animals, and that was the most fun prep of anything I've ever done. I've gotten to go and feed giraffes and hang out with penguins and the one thing I found very similar that most of actually all of the animal workers had is their energy was very soft, and they were never imposing with their energy. And I always felt like when I was on set that if I got hurt, it was my fault because I was imposing into their space before they were ready. And that's something that all of these people that work in that just inherently know. They don't push themselves on another animal.
See, from the outside, I was thinking that the common thread would be how you speak up for those who don't necessarily have a voice, and the activism. Thinking about that it was just a year ago you gave a speech at the Critics' Choice Award. You were given the first ever MVP award, and you chose to use that platform to talk about diversity and equality. How did that come to be? And what was the response that you received?
Because when you're the first person receiving an award that's for multiple films, you kind of go, well, I don't really know what to talk about because it feels kind of like they made up this award for, it's really nice, but I don't know what to do when I get up on stage, and it's televised, so I can't really just show up. And so normally you would thank a director or talk about the experience working on a film. I had 4 films out that year, so I couldn't really do that. It was Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and I had been so upset about the state of the film industry for a long time that I was like, you know what, I'm going to talk about this. So I did. I made a speech. My favorite part is at the end of the speech, and I didn't know this until someone showed me afterwards, Oprah went, wow. Which my whole life, nothing could be better than seeing Oprah do that. It was pretty great.
She was with Ava DuVernay, too.
Yeah, they were sitting next to each other, and she went, wow. It's like, yes! Don't eat anything else. Afterwards, I got, there were a lot of positive things that were said, but then also, because I'm on Twitter, I started to hear a lot of negative things, really shocking negative things from people that I probably don't live near or meet on a regular basis, but are probably why my country's so divided right now. And it just made me realize I was right to make that speech. Because if you talk about diversity and you talk about the need for equality and everyone's like, yeah, you go. And you're like, well, there's not really a problem. But if you get some feedback and people are really pissed off and very threatened by the idea of having to share anything, then you realize we still have a long way to go. And then I started a production company to try to create more diversity in the industry.
So can you talk a little bit about Freckle Films and maybe talk to us about a project you have in the works?
Yeah, so with thinking of the name of the company, I was like, what is something that is different about me, but that I hated, because I wanted to be like everyone else. My whole life it was freckles. I hated that about myself. So and that was what made me different. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to name it then, because it's about what makes all of us different. There's many projects that I have that I'm really excited about. One is I got the life rights to, I don't know if you guys know of the Black Mambas, but they're a group in South Africa of African women that fight the poachers to save the animals. And they're really tough. And also to the idea of just seeing that poster of all those women, like standing, those African women. I was like, yes, this is a movie I want to see. This is a movie that I know so many actresses would just kill it. And of course, I'm not going to be in this movie. It's just to create a place for other people.
So I have a question from a former Next Wave committee member, Bianca Wong. So Next Wave is our youth advisory and programming team. And Bianca is now a journalism student at Western University, which is a few hours away. And this is her question. And I should also mention, she's the arts and entertainment editor for the university's magazine. So Bianca asks, there still remains a lack of diversity in stories in cinema. Hollywood cinema's changing ideas of gender and femininity are still so narrow, and we need to include the voices and concerns of others who are outside of the room and left out of the conversation. How do we begin the conversation of intersectional cinema that includes more women of color, women of all ages, disabled women, queer women, and women from different classes? And then it ends with, what can the emerging industry do to support a more intersectional and diverse cinema?
I think it goes beyond necessarily the artist. It includes everyone, even some people that you wouldn't necessarily expect. If you notice in film critics, if you look at like Rotten Tomatoes and you look at the reviews, there's a movie with a female protagonist and 95% of the reviewers are men. And, we can't help but relate to something that we've experienced. There's many men can relate to a father-son relationship because they've lived that. They understand the complexities of that. Women can relate to a mother-daughter relationship in a different way. And to always have film, or the majority of film, 95% of the time film being viewed and critiqued through the eyes of one demographic, I think it's going to stunt the creative process, because then you're setting up success for only a certain type of film. And I think that's not something we think about is film criticism. When we think of diversity, I think but I also think an audience. If there is an audience that is supportive of diverse films, they need to go to see those films with female protagonists, with people of color. I think that's really important. And then also the artists can make a difference. I mean, I try to work with a female filmmaker every year, and it's not hard to find a female filmmaker to work with every year. It's just, it's not the first choice, I guess, or the obvious choice for studios. So you kind of have to demand it, or I do a lot of research on my own now with my production company. But I think everyone has to be involved, especially in a time like this. We really need to stand together and show that those in this time that might be afraid that they don't have a future in a way that they had hoped, we're there to stand for them and speak for them and help them have a platform and not make them feel invisible or ignored.
So did everyone hear that call to action? Speaking of the audience, I would like to throw it to the audience to have them pose some questions to you. I'd ask that you please wait for the microphone, and that's it. Please wait for the microphone. Okay, so I see the lightsaber there.
Hi, Jessica. This is the 4th time I've seen you at TIFF, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for being here as well. I was very intrigued with the casting and the acting of the children, especially the traumatized girl. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the preparation. It's such a scary topic, putting the kids on the train, but specifically the girl who is attacked and her trauma.
She's an amazing actress. Her name is Shira. She's from Israel. Her and Magda, the woman who plays Magda, and the actor, I forgot the character's name. It's the first time I've seen the finished cut. The guy with the glasses. You remember his name? Maurizio. Yes, also. So there was a lot of people in this film that the film had a special personal meaning to them. She's an incredible actress, and I know she approached the character to become like an animal. And it's how Antonina is able to bridge the gap from animal to human in a way, because she sees this girl behave like an animal. It's like the basest instincts, and she knows how to communicate that way. The children were really wonderful. A lot of the times they didn't know, the little boy, like when the animals were being shot outside, he didn't know what was going on. And the older kid, Val, he's a really good actor. The scene that he had with Daniel, I mean, he was very present and there in the scene of, when he had to lock me into the cage. He didn't practice anything ahead of time. He was just, he was there in the moment waiting to be shocked by what happened. And I think that's the best way to work with kids. I don't think anyone should ever be traumatized. But I'm happy when they can feel safe, but also not know what's going to happen.
Yes. Hello. Did you like the movie? That was my question, which you don't have to answer. But I also just had a comment. It's a bit unusual maybe, but I was wondering if you're ever talking to the sound designer. Say it was like the best. It was unbelievable. I think when the planes went over the zoo at the beginning, I hope I never experienced that in person, but it really felt like something.
I remember, and I'm trying to remember if it was from the book or if it was from talking to Teresa. She talked about the animals experiencing. I mean, she wasn't there for the bombing; she wasn't alive yet. But stories being passed down, and also it may be in the book, how the animals react before the bombs hit, and how Antonina in that moment is almost like an animal. Like there's the sensing of you hear the planes coming, and you don't know exactly what it means. And I liked the movie. I liked what Nikki, our director, did in that scene, because you really see the animals at odds. And I want you all to know that they were not abused. Like they were playing with sticks and stuff that you couldn't see when they were like chasing something, like with a cat pointer when you're playing with your cat, stuff like that. So everyone was very safe. But I like how she put that sequence together.
First of all, thank you for being here. It's so nice to be able to see you and see you present this film that reminds me a lot of you. But as similar as Antonina is, I think that there must have been a lot of challenges in the script, like working with such like intense animals and the accent. And I was wondering if there were any particularly challenging scenes for you, or any particularly challenging like moments for you on set. Thank you.
Hi, nice to see you again. One challenging scene was the one being locked in the cage, because it was one of our last days of shooting, and my coverage, it wasn't raining, but Daniel's coverage, it was. So we each got like 2 takes each, and then we had to move on. And it was really, we were both just kind of freaked out. And there was, we couldn't really watch playback or anything. So that was very stressful. But I'm glad it came at the end of the shoot, because we had good sense of our characters. And then also, what's challenging, and I tried to, I always wanted to play opposites, right? 2 things going on at once. So for Antonina, she doesn't want to be around Erhek, but yet there is someone there that's now seeing her as a colleague, in a time where women really didn't have professions. And so that's interesting too, this idea that she doesn't want to be in this room with this person, but he's someone who respects her way with animals. And I found that really difficult to play.
Hi. Oh, okay. So earlier you were talking about filmmakers that you've worked with in the past and that you've really enjoyed. Are there any other filmmakers in the industry that you would love to get a chance to work with in the future?
I'd love to work with Michael Haneke. He's incredible. And yeah, he's probably my number one that I'd want to work with. Paul Thomas Anderson, Spike Jonze. There's a long list. But I do like 7 films a year, so hopefully I'll get... Or hopefully the sad thing is some of my favorite filmmakers, ones I really, really admire, don't make films with female protagonists. And that's something you're like, oh, everyone's like, you should work with so-and-so. And I'm like, well, look at they don't make movies with women in them.
I'm guessing you maybe want to give us initials?
No. No, it's a lot. There's a lot, actually. If you just start to go look at like a lot of successful filmmakers, look at their films and see how many had male protagonists and how many had female, and you'll be shocked.
This is a crew who knows how to follow up, so...
Yeah, do it, guys.
Do it.
Tweet it. Get it out there.
Yeah.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
First of all, congratulations on this film. It's amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm continued to be impressed by the way you display emotion in your characters, so congratulations.
Thank
it's
you very
incredible.
much.
My question is around the key messaging that you've seen from the film, especially now that it's your first time seeing it. One thing that I noticed, or the theme that I felt, was selflessness amongst desperation. I wanted to get kind of your opinion on the emotions or the themes that you feel or that you've aimed to get across with the film, and how you felt that's been achieved and the message that you want to share with the film.
Yeah, there were 2 things when Nikki and I were talking about the film that really struck me. The first theme was, what does it mean to be in a cage? And a lot of people miss it. And she told me she saw it, and then I saw it in the film. There's the scene in the Warsaw Ghetto where you see a couple standing outside the ghetto, and the guy's taking a picture of the girl, and she's like posing. That's real. That actually happened. People would go to the ghetto, and they would take pictures like they were at a zoo. And so this kind of idea of making people into animals and animals into people, and what that is to be the spectator of the person or the animal in the cage. That theme was really strong for me. And then also a different kind of hero. A lot of times in our media, we celebrate, or our heroes are the ones who their heroicism is aggressive. They're a war hero, or there's violence associated with their heroicism. Their tool is a gun or a knife, or that's how they become a hero. And Antonina is a different kind of hero because her tool is compassion and love. And I don't think we have enough of those stories in our media, and we don't celebrate those heroes nearly enough. And that was really important for me with this film.
Thank you.
Hi, Jessica, and
Hi.
thanks for coming. Just wanted to know, what was it like to work with Daniel Bruhl?
He's intense, man. He is an intense guy. He's wonderful to work with because he's actually shockingly very, very funny. And when doing those scenes, he just would make you laugh. It was hard to keep a straight face. At one point, in the whole hand washing scene, and it was the first day we were working together. So of course he's super shy too. We're both really uncomfortable and awkward, and washing hands. And then all of a sudden he just did this. I have to shut this down. So he's here, and instead of like putting the water on my hands, he accidentally, because he was nervous, he went like this, all over my lap. He just is super awkward, super funny. I work with him anytime. But he's really talented too, and scary.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. It's nice to meet you again. I was at the Miss Sloane premiere. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you.
Oh, thanks. I'm super nervous again. So, well, with this film, it's coming out at a time that's really scary. Our neighbors to the south elected an individual who stands for some pretty scary messages, and it's very reminiscent of what is happening in this film and what has happened in history. I don't know if this is much a question or just like a thank you more. That I just wanted to say that this film is important because it shows that people are people, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what they believe in. And I'm sorry. I hope that this film resonates with people, especially in the US and all over the world. And it shows that you cannot pick on a group of individuals because they are different. And it is important to me because I am one of those people.
I think everyone here feels that you're not different. Everyone here has your back.
Sorry, 1 second. I know this. I asked you this question before at the Miss Sloane premiere, if this was one of your intentions to make films that resonate and are important. And I wanted to know, what do you hope to see from the response once this film comes out? We obviously love to hear. But overall, what do you think should be coming out in the headlines and et cetera, et cetera? I've lost my train of thought.
All I could hope for when this film comes out is women and men and girls and boys look at Antonina as an inspiration of love. And it makes, how wonderful would it be to see this film, and it makes your heart bigger. And that's why I did it, because she inspired me, and I didn't get to learn about women in history in my public school education. I kind of grew up thinking that women weren't heroic and didn't do extraordinary things. And so my goal, my hope would be that people see this film and they know that no matter what darkness and uncertainty is ahead of them, they know that they're stronger than any of that, and that their love for other people will always save them. You're welcome.
Hi. So I really, really enjoyed the movie. I'm way back here. Sorry. Where are you?
Oh, wow.
Hello.
Way back there.
So yeah, I really enjoyed the movie and love seeing a really great female protagonist. She's really unique and complex and just a really great story. And I also thought the presence of all the different animals in the movie was really unique as well, and kind of added a whole new element to a war movie, which there are many war movies and brilliant ones, but I thought the animals added kind of a magical quality to this story, and I'd be really interested to hear more about your thoughts on that and her relationship with the animals.
Yeah, for me, I think Antonina's relationship with the animals is the most important relationship, besides Jan and Rish and Teresa for her. at the beginning when we first meet Antonina, it's almost like she thinks she is an animal, and she has a language with them that she can't quite she can't communicate with other people, with humans even. So it was really important to show that kind of love. When I was there, I spent a lot of time with the animals. My first time with the monkeys, we were there and we were just like, I loved them so much, and they were on my lap and we were shooting, or even before it, I had the grapes and I was feeding them grapes, and they just go to the bathroom nonstop. And it was like my first day, and it really was like it was nonstop. After we shot, we didn't even have, we'd like ruined the dress. We had to get something new. But I realized that day one that, okay, this is going to be unlike anything, because I have to just be accepting and okay with getting peed on and spit on and whatever that is, because in a way I have to be part animal now. And that first day I realized it was going to be fine.
So we have time for a couple more questions. Yep.
Hi, my name's Josh Rackless. I tweeted you a song. I wrote a theme song to the movie just before I saw it.
To this movie?
Yeah, so you'll watch it, and I just want to apologize, because from the title, I kind of thought it would be like, We Bought a Zoo or something silly. So it's a bit of a funny song. But as a person of Jewish persuasion and of ginger persuasion, I feel sort of a double connection to the movie. So just on the music theme, I just want to ask, I noticed in the credits that you actually played the music, and I'm wondering, did you always play piano, or was that something you learned, like Ryan Gosling apparently learned for his movie? And was there any sort of subtle tie-in, because I know music was a big part of the Holocaust, like even in the ghettos, people still put on concerts and tried to play music.
Yeah, I forgot, that was some preparation too. That was a lot of preparation. My first time I've ever played the piano was in Crimson Peak. Guillermo del Toro had me playing like Chopin. Usually you start playing the piano, you're playing like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or something. And then this one I'm playing, just all these classical pieces. So I spent 3 months learning. And actually what I like is that Antonina wasn't a concert pianist. And it's not, they didn't like dub it over. I mean, I was expecting me to play and then them to dub it over with someone that sounded really good. But they like kept in the old piano, that some of the notes didn't work, and that you could hear the pedal, and that it's me, and that sometimes I would get a note wrong. I like that because that feels more honest for the character. And but yeah, it took a lot of work even to make that many mistakes in the film. It was many hours.
Last question. Yep.
First of all, Teresa, great evening. Thank you for the...
Thank you to everyone for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you to Jessica.
No, but your questions are great. And Jessica, I'm so enthralled by the paintings on the wall. Where are those paintings? Are they at the zoo, or would they have been transported to Yad Vashem?
Actually, the paintings are fiction. Sorry to burst your bubble, you guys. Oh. The zoo is real, and the house is real. It looks exactly the same as in the movie. When I went to the Warsaw Zoo and I saw the house, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I saw the production design. But Nikki wanted a visual way, an emotional visual way of showing how many people had been there in the tunnels. So that is Hollywood.
So I have one final question. Film education is important to us, and we mentioned before that Guillermo del Toro does these master classes. He's done Hitchcock, Buñuel. He did Gothic romance to prepare us for Crimson Peak. If you were to teach a series of master classes, what books or films would you have your class watch in preparation?
Oh, that's way too hard to ask me and to answer that in 10 seconds. I definitely would have some Charlie Chaplin in there, because I think the storytelling in The Kid, that movie, I don't know if all of you guys have seen The Kid. It's incredible, and you should see it. It's very emotional, and and not a word is spoke. But what I would probably do actually is I would do silent film, and then I would connect it to Terrence Malick, because I think he's the last living silent film director. All of his voiceover is like the cards that would come up in silent films. And also from what I've read about silent films, I love, oh my God, I love Greer Garson, but I also love Clara Bow. And I read a lot about her and the change to talkies. And it used to be in silent film times, the sets were really loud and the directors were always talking and things were going on. And then when sound came to be, everything was put in, like the camera was stationary and it was in a box and everyone had to be quiet with the microphone. Nothing could move around anymore. And in Terry's sets, everything is really loud and everyone's talking and he's like, move this way, find the sun, and he'd say a line and then you say the line. And I was filming Tree of Life while I was reading about Clara Bow, and I realized, okay, I think he's the only filmmaker probably like this now, because the dialogue doesn't really matter in his movies. You're not really going to hear it. It's mostly the voiceovers.
Everyone, please join me in thanking actor, producer, and hopefully professor Jessica Chastain.